Thank you for joining us for the 2-minute drills. I'm Aram Talegian, behind the camera, the San Gabriel Valley Newspaper Group football writer, joined by, on your left, Miguel Melendez, the Star News Prep Sports editor, and on his right, or I should say on your right, our right, Fred J. Robledo, the San Gabriel Valley Tribune's Prep Sports editor. Guys, as usual, when we get you two together on the set, it can mean nothing more than a beautiful crossover game between the Star News and the Tribune areas, and that's what we've got this week. Two teams, 1 and 2, that had higher expectations than being 1 and 2, play this week in a big showdown at Monrovia. Monrovia 1 and 2 hosting South Hills 1 and 2. Freddie, Miguel, take it away.
Well, I'm going to be in M-Town this week. This will be my first trip back.
Yeah, it's big.
Since they redid
Fred's
the
coming
stadium.
back.
That used to be one of my favorite places in the West Side. And look, when the season started, when everything was out, I thought I really kind of circled this game on the calendar because I knew South Hills was going to be real improved. We knew what Monrovia had coming back after the Mid-Valley title. But both teams are 1 and 2 right now. But I think down the line, Miguel, both these teams are going to regroup, and especially Monrovia. Once they get in the Rio Hondo League, they're going to be fine. They have played a pretty difficult schedule, and they lost a tough game at Arcadia. San Dimas last week. San Dimas is a much improved team, and they were missing McCarthy. I mean, say what you want, but they were missing that big guy in the middle. This game, though, this week, South Hills, despite them being 1 and 2, I covered their game against West Covina earlier in the year. This team offensively is as good as anyone in our valley. I mean, when you think of Vince Hernandez at quarterback, Jamie Canada at receiver, I thought he's the best receiver I've seen this year. I know you're going to say Legacy, Aram. You saw him that Arcadia game.
Yeah, there's so many, man, this year.
We talked about Hareen at Bonita, but I'm going to tell you what.
Right.
Jamie Canada is as good as any of them. And then you think of the backfield, Jamel Hart.
Right.
That guy can run with the best of them, too. So Monrovia is going to have to stop that machine. Now, on the flip side, Monrovia's got to get the ball going off. They've got to start running the ball. The one thing West Covina could do against South Hills, they put 400 yards rushing on them. You can't really throw on South Hills that great. I don't know. Monrovia doesn't really throw the ball a lot. But when you think of Canada in the secondary, Vince Hernandez in the secondary, or run, I can't see them throwing over the top or beating them that way. They're going to have to run. Deshaun Ramirez is going to have a good game, or they're going to be 1 and 4.
Well, 1 and 3. But I want to go back and touch on a couple of things. Both teams are 1 and 2, but they're two very different 1 and 2 teams. You look at how Monrovia has lost. Even when they beat Glendora, it wasn't in dominating fashion.
Yeah.
They lose to Arcadia on the last possession against Arcadia, and then against San Dimas, they were just nowhere to be found. Their offense was non-existent. They were just breaking down mentally, and they were just exposed on their secondary. They just weren't playing the way we know Monrovia is. We think they can play. But you look at who South Hills has lost. So they lost to Colony by 1. They lost to West Covina by 1. And then when they play an inferior team, they beat the crap out of them and go 61-0.
Yeah.
So when they're supposed to be teams,
they're good, Miguel. In those two games that you mentioned, the reason, the first game they missed they were trying to go for the 2-point conversion and win that game. There was a penalty. They missed the extra point. They lose 30-29 against West Covina. They missed an extra point earlier in the game. Right. Their last touchdown, they needed a 2-point conversion to send it to overtime. They didn't get it. So you're right. They're a team. Despite playing pretty good teams, they're very close to being 3-0. I think, and we talk a lot about Charter Oak on that side, what Damien's doing in the Sierra, Chino Hills. Believe me, South Hills can play and beat any of those teams. They can get beat by those teams, but they're explosive enough offensively where they can beat those teams. To me, although Monrovia's played Arcadia, they played San Dimas, this is the toughest game on their schedule. I really believe that. Yeah. I think South Hills is better than Arcadia and San Dimas. I really do. I mean, that's why sometimes records aren't everything. You got to look at how they play these games, and against the schedule they have, they're very close to being 3-0. I mean, you can make a good argument for that. That's why I think this is another big measuring stick game for Monrovia. And if they can get through this game and beat South Hills, I think over Monrovia you can relax a little bit. You could say, we've had those games against Arcadia and San Dimas didn't go our way, but if you could beat someone like South Hills, I think that would cure a lot of the bad feeling over there where they think this is curtailing off into some bad season. That's not going to happen. They're going to go through the Rio Hondo League, and they're going to run through it.
Well, Fred,
they're going to be the team, Aram. This is a perfect situation for Monrovia to win a championship, and I'll tell you why. They're going to struggle right now, right?
Why? It seems like last year.
They're going to go. No. They're going to.
They beat South Hills and ran the table the rest of the way.
But they're going to go to the playoffs and be that team nobody wants to face. Covina may not lose another game. Maranatha's going to have that pressure of the bullseye and winning a lot of games. Monrovia is in a good spot. But having said that, they're not as good as last year.
Well,
that's pretty clear.
Let me ask both of you something, and you can answer this before we get into predictions. Don't take too much time on this. Who do you think there is more pressure on in this game? 1-2 South Hills or 1-2 Monrovia?
I think there's probably more pressure on Monrovia to get it going. I do. I think South Hills, they know every week for them is going to be a big game. I mean, once they get through Monrovia, who do they have next? Is it Los Osos that comes next week?
That's right.
And then they go with Charter Oak.
Right.
And then they get the rest of the Sierra League. So I remember having this conversation with Bogan, talking about this big game when they were playing West Covina. He goes, hey, look, since we moved into this new league, you can't say, like, this is the big game everyone's up for this one. He goes, every single week you have these games. So Monrovia, to be honest with you, might be one of the easier games on South Hills' schedule. No disrespect to Monrovia, but when you look at everyone that South Hills has to play, I mean, Monrovia is probably the 6th or 7th toughest team on their schedule.
Yeah, but in terms of pure talent, though, Monrovia is probably one of the top 2 or 3 teams on their schedule.
They have a lot of talent, but at what positions? You know, they
got the number 5 recruit in the country.
But you look, but that's right in the middle. It's not a running back. If you're number 5 recruit,
but they got Deshaun Ramirez.
But I'm saying, or a receiver or a quarterback. That's why Nick Bueno was so important to that team last year. He was a player of the year. You're talking about a guy who's a quarterback, impact position. That's different than McCarthy, who can only do so much for you on offense. But he can.
I'm really happy. I understand it, but I'm really happy you're going to go see this team finally, because you're going to see 6 or 7 of the greatest frames that you're going to see in the Valley on one team this year. And that's having seen
6 or 7 of the greatest frames that you're going to see in the Valley, then why are they losing to San Dimas at home the way they did?
Because they have not put things together.
They would have 5 or 6 of these.
Because a key position.
San Dimas didn't have Dylan Carroll.
I try and answer the question. I understand it. I try and answer the question as best I can. They have not put things together. Obviously, they're a little suspect at a key position like quarterback, and maybe just maybe the play calling hasn't relied enough, like Miguel said, on the running game. So I mean, I think there are some reasons. But they are extremely talented, man. I mean, they're an impressive sight to see, frame-wise. Okay, get into your predictions, boys. We only have a couple minutes left here.
Well, I like South Hills. I like South Hills because I think they're a better team. I think they have an offense that has an identity a little different than Monrovia right now. I think they know what they're doing. They have a lot of options. Like I said, Canada's great. They can defend the perimeter if you want to throw on them. Monrovia's best chance is to be able to run the ball, but I just don't think they're going to outscore them. I think, South Hills is going to score 28 to 35 points in this game. Their offense has been able to do that against really good teams, and Monrovia's gave up a few points, so I don't think that's going to change. I'm just not sure Monrovia can put 35 or 40 on South Hills.
Right, and you said it, South Hills has an identity. Monrovia is still in search of theirs. They have no idea what they're doing right now in terms of what kind of production they're going to get from the running game or their air assault. Blake Kayworth and George Frazier have combined for under 600 yards passing. Together, they've thrown for 4 interceptions, 4 touchdowns. And you look at Vince Hernandez, who's thrown for almost 800 yards and 8 touchdowns. So yeah, South Hills has its identity. Monrovia is still in search of theirs.
I'm more concerned with Monrovia's defense. Everyone talks about their offense. Why are they giving up so many points if they have all these athletes?
I'll tell you. I mean, because I know they've seen San Dimas a lot, but they didn't have Ellis McCarthy for that game against San Dimas. And like we've said about Charter Oak when they play Glendora, they don't want to. Monrovia's athletes don't want to play against a wing tee. It's not the kind of offense they want to defend against. They want to get out there and rush the passer and play coverage and whatnot, and they're good at that.
At all.
Yeah, it's true, man. It's not. You cannot. Those kids these days don't like to defend.
Get up for those games.
No, they can get up for it, but it's not a kind of offense that they want to defend. We only have a minute left here, so I just want to say one thing since we've gotten your prediction. I kind of disagree with you about who more pressure is on. I think it's on South Hills, and I think if you look at it in terms of just the season, maybe it's on Monrovia, but Monrovia is still a defending CIF champion. South Hills is not, and South Hills over the last couple of years, if you look at their whole body of work, they need a big win, something like this. And this is their chance to get it. They've got a team that's kind of reeling, and I agree with you, Fred. I think South Hills is going to get the win. 15 seconds if you guys want to say anything else besides get out there.
Deshaun Ramirez, 5 carries last week. Marquise Baez, 5 carries last week.
Okay.
That's brutal. All right.
Well, see you Friday in M-Town.
Yeah, Fred's big return to Monrovia coming up on Friday night. That should be awesome for all the M-Town fans to see Freddie. Right. Okay, get out to Monrovia High School, South Hills of Monrovia on Friday night.
Save me a seat in the press box.